Okay, so just to recap, in this very profound commentary on page 230 and 231, Rabbi Steinsaltz is speaking about multiple ideas. Idea number one is a revolutionary idea, and what Judaism teaches that is maybe different, very different than other religions, and that is that, yes, we do live in two different dimensions, the material one and the spiritual one, but in some other religions, the spiritual one is seen as the loftier dimension, as the better dimension maybe. While in Judaism, it's not necessarily the case. The material dimension can and sometimes should be higher and loftier and better than the spiritual dimension. Why? Because in the spiritual dimension, we're only using our spiritual senses. So just a part of ourselves. While in the material dimension, if we are able to bring heaven down to earth, so to speak, to bring the spirituality down to materialism, then the material dimension, we can use all of our senses. We can use our entire selves. We can be our entire selves. Now, the way to do that is to elevate the matter, not to sink into it. And that's done through what he's been speaking about now for so long, by elevating what he calls the klipat noga, right? The neutral zone. So the food that we eat, when we say a blessing, then it's elevated. But that's when that piece of food, which is seemingly material, becomes spiritual. And that's when that material world can be higher than the spiritual world alone. That's one big idea. The other idea is that as we engage in elevating this material world, by again bringing spirituality into it, or to use another expression that the Tanya uses, that the Zohar, the Kabbalah, the foremost book of Kabbalah uses, which is the expression of birur nitzutzot, which is elevating the sparks. Because in everything in this world, even in the most material thing, there are divine sparks that await for us to elevate them, to redeem them by using that specific material thing for something holy, for something good. So whether it's a thing or whether it's an exercise, sports, for example, right? If we use sports in order to then be healthier, to serve God, then we've elevated those divine sparks. We've transformed the world of sports in many ways. Remember that when the Lubavitch Rebbe asked for the first time in 200 years to translate the Tanya, the very book that we're reading, no one had translated it before, and he asked to translate it in many languages, including in Italian. I remember seeing an Italian copy, but many other languages. He said that not only are we making the book of the Tanya accessible to all by translating it, but we're also elevating the languages themselves by bringing the holy words of the Tanya to them. So when it was translated into Arabic, for example, he said to the person that was translating it into Arabic, Rabbi David Bouskila from Morocco, who translated it from Arabic, he said to him, while you're elevating, you're breaking the klipa of Ishmael, you're breaking the peel of Ishmael, of the descendants of Ishmael. In other words, you bring holiness into the language, and in Italian you bring holiness into the language. So that's how we do it. But as we do so, and that's point number two, as we do so, we have to make sure indeed, and this is the last point here, right, that one is doing it for God himself without any obstruction of the ego. Because if I'm doing it just for my feelings, to feel good, then you really are not doing it for God. Then it's not about elevating those divine sparks. It's about elevating you, and it's you oriented, and it's me oriented, and it's egotistically oriented or ego oriented, and therefore it really doesn't speak to the divine, therefore can't elevate the divine. But one has to be sure that he's not attaching himself to oneself, but rather himself to God while elevating the material world. It reminds me of a story, and then we can continue. But story I just read this Shabbat about one of the students. It's a powerful story, a harsh one. But one of the students of the Maggid of Mezrich, who was the student of the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, who, by the way, was the rabbi of Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the author of the Tanya. One of his students was named, no one knows exactly what his name was, but he was named the Volper in Yiddish, the Volper, maybe referring to where he came from, Volp, don't know. But unfortunately, this student became an alcoholic, and they used to they used another Kabbalistic term to refer to him, that he had an experience called Shvirat HaKelim. In Kabbalah, this means the breaking of the vessel. That's because when he became alcoholic and addicted to alcohol, then his vessel broke, shattered. Like happens, what happens to unfortunately many addicts. The vessel that has so much potential just is shattered until they can rebuild it. But even though he became alcoholic and he lived in the streets, he was almost homeless, but his mouth was still so full of pills. He would often say Hasidic sayings, and he would often say the truth and just beautiful, profound concept. And one day he found himself in this town where the chief rabbi of that town was known as a very respected and prestigious scholar. And he went to visit him on a Friday afternoon just before Shabbat. And he sees that the rabbi is lighting 702 candles for Shabbat, 702 Shabbat candles. Why 702, you may ask? Because the rabbi's custom was to light as many candles as the numerical value of the word Shabbat. The word Shabbat, the gematria, the numerical value of the word Shabbat is 702. So he says you light 702 candles. All right. So here comes the Volper into this room with 702 candles. And he says as follows to this rabbi. He says, look, you lit 702 candles and the room still remains dark. My rabbi, the Maggid of Mezrich, lit only 2 candles on Shabbat and the room just lit up. But so what he was telling this rabbi is that, look, you can light as many candles as you want, but if it doesn't come with that sincere desire to attach yourself to God, as Rabbi Steinsaltz is saying here, with no ego whatsoever, then the room will still be dark. But my rabbi is a fluid channel to God. He does things only for God. And when you do that, only 1 candle, 2 candles suffice. You don't need 702 candles. Those 2 candles light up the room. So it was a very sharp critique to the rabbi, but very powerful one. And we find that a lot, that in society, that many people do make a lot of noise. At the end of the day, why they're making a lot of noise, even psychologically, to relate to something within themselves, something that's bothering them, and therefore they make a lot of noise. If they were wholesome people, wholesome things don't make a lot of noise. The Talmud says that when you have a coin, when you have a jar full of coins and you shake it, the jar doesn't make a lot of noise. But when you have a jar with just 2 coins and you shake it, it makes a lot of noise. It's because if you're empty, you make a lot of noise. But if you're full and if you're wholesome, you don't make a lot of noise. And why is that? Because when you're full and wholesome, you're also wholesome with God, wholesome with your soul. That's what it means to be wholesome. When you're wholesome with God and wholesome with your soul shines through without needing to make too much effort. But you see that Rabbi Steinsaltz would say this very often about his mother. So he would say that his mother was a seamstress. And she taught him an invaluable lesson for life. And that is that to make a very sophisticated dress with all sorts of colors and designs is quite easy. But to make a very simple dress, that's very hard. Same with life. To attain that level of simplicity in which everything just flows naturally from the soul, that's very hard. The Maggid of Kotsk, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Morgenstern, would not pray with ecstasy as many of his peers would. He would just stand still. By the way, like the Lubavitch Rebbe, they would just stand still. You wouldn't see in them too much shokels or things like that. And one day, someone came to the Kotzker Maggid, to the Rebbe of Kotsk, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Morgenstern, and says, hey, look how you pray and look how your cousin prays. Your cousin, when he prays, he somersaults and he goes all over and he sweats and he, bleeds and so on. So he prays much better than you do. And The Kotzker Rebbe was known for his very fiery tongue. He responded as follows. He said to him, what can I do? But lazy donkeys have to sweat more. If you're a lazy donkey, then you have to sweat more. You have to make more effort. If you're a strong donkey that's driven, you don't have to sweat that much. And what he was saying, I don't have to sweat that much. I'm connected. I have to sweat that much. If you're not connected, that's when you make a lot of noise. But that's the idea here, that in order to elevate the material world, we have to be indeed divine oriented. When we eat that apple, we really have to think, I'm not doing this just for my own pleasure. Apples, I love apples. They're delicious. And an apple away keeps the doctor away. But I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it maybe also for that, but I'm doing it also to elevate those sparks. I have to be really one with God. And when we're one with God, that's when we can truly elevate the world. But that's the big idea here. I'd love to hear your comments. Otherwise, let's continue. Yes, indeed, in the middle of page 231. Anyone? Okay, let's go. Elsewhere, the author explains the two types of love. So speaking of that attachment with God and the love that we have to God, that we have to have towards God, that must indeed be altruistic, egoless, right? So let's continue. Middle of page 231. That's where we were up to, right, Margot?
Yes, in this sense.
Oh, in the sense. Okay, so go ahead. Let's continue at the bottom of the page here. In the sense, love is not synonymous with attachment. Go for it.
Right. Okay. In this sense, love is not synonymous with attachment. Love is a feeling, an expression of emotions and excitement of the soul, which must not be underrated. Attachment, on the other hand, is not a feeling. It may sometimes be accompanied by deep emotion, but may also be present without any emotion at all. The presence or absence of emotion is irrelevant to the reality of the bond.
Right. Continue. There's a nice, cute story here.
It is told of one of the great Hasidim that on the first night of Passover, he conducted the Seder with great excitement, diligently fulfilling all the observances with the appropriate kavanot, meditations, and felt that he was rising into worlds above worlds. The following day, exhausted by the immense effort of that Seder, he decided to rest a little before the second Seder. When he awoke, it was nearly midnight, the deadline for finishing the main part of the Seder. So he had to rush to arrange the Seder plate and do whatever had to be done quickly so that he complete all in time. Understandably, he was very upset and depressed. Sometime later, he came to his Rebbe, who said, "Nu, so you held two Seders. At the first, you were flying around in the heavens. So you were flying around in the heavens. But the second Seder was a very good Seder indeed. When someone has lofty experiences, this might make him feel very good about himself, but it has nothing to do with the attachment to God. In a sense, the reverse may be true. Someone who is in the state of true attachment has no time to think about how much love and how he loves, whereas someone who feels good about himself should perhaps cast doubts on the quality of his attachment. The chassid who had to prepare the Seder in a hurry had no time to prime himself, to contemplate himself, to ascertain the precise level he had attained. In those moments when he was acting, doing something, he displayed his inner desire, and he was attached from within, genuinely and cleanly, with no superlative of emotion and awareness, which are irrelevant to one's actual attachment to God.
Right. I think that's the one of the maybe most important ideas of life. And please feel free to disagree with me. But I think in our society, we have it upside down. So there's this concept of the pursuit of happiness, or even the pursuit of love. And I think that based on these words of the Tanya, the pursuit of happiness, the pursuit of love, thwart happiness and love, because happiness and love are byproducts to a certain state that a human being achieves by doing that which is right, that which is beyond the reaction of his feelings and his emotions, that which is beyond his entire self. When I love my wife just because, not because she brings me pleasure in return, not because it feels good to love, but just to love, just because I need to love, just because it's not about me, it's about her. And I want to be completely devoted to her. That's when I truly love. And then love comes about. That's the byproduct of my devotion and my utter selfless dedication to my wife. True with every relationship, and true with the relationship with God. When many people come and have told me throughout the years as a rabbi, that's the type of questions you get. Rabbi, I'm just not feeling it. I don't feel inspired. I'm not feeling it. I don't feel like coming to shul. I don't feel like praying. I don't feel like doing this mitzvah or that mitzvah. Now, my immediate response based on the Tanya year is that who says it's about feeling it? Who says Judaism is about feeling it? It's specifically when you don't feel it that you can prove that you truly love. So well done. Congratulations. You've reached a higher level than I have. Because now you can express your love in a way that's completely altruistic, in a way that I can't even express my love because I feel good about praying to God or doing that mitzvah. It's not about feeling it. It's about your utter selfless dedication. And that in of itself will lead you to true love. It's like happiness. Happiness is a direct result of self-fulfillment, of the deepest self-fulfillment. When I fulfill the reason for which for which I was created, for which my soul was sent down to this world, whether it's through a specific talent that I have, because God gave me a talent to actualize in this world, or whether it's through a specific mission that I have. God gave me this opportunity right now to fulfill it, and that's part of my purpose, right? If someone knocked on my door and needs help, and I actually help him because he knocked on my door, he didn't knock someone else's door, so God sent him to me, and I go and help him, or sometimes I don't even have to wait for people to knock at my door. I take the initiative to help. So whatever my purpose is, when I fulfill that purpose and I fulfill my deepest self, then yes, then I'll be happy. But if I constantly search for happiness by saying, oh, this will make me happy and this will make me happy, the problem is that is then ego-oriented very often, self-oriented altogether. And when it's self-oriented, that's when we can't really truly reach the altruistic stages of life, like happiness or like true love. So once I only fulfill my purpose, that's when I can really attain happiness. But if I pursue happiness, that's when happiness is thwarted, because I'm pursuing something that is self-oriented. Now, that's the big idea. That they say that about love too, and going back to this idea of making a lot of noise. But they say that, I told that to Mendele now, who just got engaged, said to him, look, you'll know that you're truly in love when you can sit on a bench in any park in the world and just be quiet with your wife and enjoy that silence. When you have stopped thinking that, oh, I've got to fill up, it's awkward, I've got to fill up this moment with some conversation, or I have to make a little noise, I have to kiss, when you can just sit there in silence and bask in that silence and enjoy the company of one another, just because you're receiving anything, just not because you're having any conversation or any type of interaction, just because you're one. When you can bask in that oneness in silence, that's when you know you're in love. And that's the idea here, that I am so attached to God that that in of itself suffices. Not receiving anything in return. I'm one. I enjoy just the company of God. Kirvat Elokim li tov, in the words of King David. It's just a beautiful verse. The closeness of God is good for me. Kirvat Elokim li tov. And that in of itself, I'm not expecting anything in return. I just love. That attachment is really the not only the ideal state, but it's the state that we should all aim for. And that's what true love is about. When we have that attachment, then we can have that love. Just like the story with this guy preparing for the second Seder. The first Seder was all about him. How can I feel good tonight about myself? So let me prepare and have the best Seder in the world. Second Seder, he woke up too late, so it wasn't about him anymore. He couldn't handle it. But that's when he truly enjoyed it. That's when he attained heaven. Because it's not about you. When you can take you out of the picture, that's when God can come into the picture. And when God comes into that picture, that's when you've attained really true attachment with God. That's what he said.
I have some advice for your son.
Yes.
Silent and listen have the same letters.
Very good. I like that. That's right. Silent and listen have the same letters.
That's good.
Beautiful. 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 Very good. I think that's the ultimate silence. A silence that listens to the silence, right? When you can understand, when you are truly in love, the silence tells you, because you're listening to it, silence tells you what your other is feeling. You don't even need the other to express what he or she is feeling, right? You already know
You
it.
have to listen to what the other one says too.
That's true. That's also true. To the
Rabbi,
word themselves. Yes. Yes,
it's,
George.
it's like the story you've told about the composer who described the most beautiful part of the music is the silence between the notes.
Yeah, Debussy. That's right, Claude Debussy. Right, Amy will correct us if we're wrong. Yes, that's right. It's the silence between the notes that really make the music, not the notes themselves. Yeah, I will say that's true in life too. In life, we have our achievements, but or our own, doings. But very often, they're our own doings. It's the second we can separate ourselves from those doings and allow God in, that's when we can really live. It's the silence that we make in between the notes of our lives that really make the music of God. Right. Yeah. Okay, let's maybe go on with this last paragraph on 232. In any case, unless of course there's any other comments, disagreements, please feel free. Okay, Margot, in any case, let's continue here.
In any case, the body is only an instrument in the sense that it is morally neutral. The battle between the two souls is therefore over the body. Who should use it and for what purpose? Should it serve the animal soul, which sees the body not as an instrument, but as an end in itself? Should the instrument then be recast as an objective and thus become an expression of klipa? Or should it serve the godly soul, which sees it as an instrument through which it can achieve a higher degree of attachment to God than itself possesses?
Right. Okay. I would say that if there's a refrigerator quote to remind ourselves of each and every day, it's that question: should it serve the battle between the two souls? So who should use the body and for what purpose? That's the refrigerator quote. Is it the animal soul that should use the body, or is it the divine soul that should use the body, and for what purpose? In other words, you can refine that or rephrase that refrigerator quote, that question, to meditate on every day. And that the question could be, well, am I going to be driven by my body today, or am I going to be driven by my soul today? If I'm driven by my body, which is what the animal soul, then I'm driven only towards my ego, towards my self-fulfillment, or pleasurable fulfillments, or materialistic fulfillments, because that's what the body is, bodily fulfillments, let's put it that way. And then it begins and it ends with the I. If I am driven by my soul, then it's not about me and my I. It's about what God wants of me. And then before every action that I do today, I will ask myself, am I doing this just for me, or am I doing this for God himself, for a greater purpose? And when we can do things for that greater purpose, for God himself, then our whole lives become divine. And not only do our lives become divine, but then the world that we engage with also becomes divine, because we've used it for divine purposes. And really, that's the ultimate state. And I would say, it reminds me of Rabbi Steinsaltz himself. I think I've shared this before, but it's just a powerful thought. And if I have, then please stop me. But when he was about 22 years old, 23 years old, he would give a class to the president of the state of Israel, Zalman Shazar, and some other very big professors and so on. And very often you would feel like I'm just this pisher. These people could be my grandfathers. And then he came to this realization that they didn't come to listen to him, to his voice. They came to listen to the voice of the Torah that was flowing through him. And the voice of the Torah is 3,000 years old. So really, he was the oldest in the room. He was 3,022, 23 years old. And the rest was 65, 70 years old. So he was the oldest in the room, and that made him feel comfortable. But that's the whole idea, that are we doing things, whatever it is, whether it's teaching, like Rabbi Stans was doing in that context, or whether it's even just eating, or whether it's sleeping. Am I doing this just for myself and my bodily pleasure? Or am I doing this to be God's conduit in this world, for God himself? That's the big question. And that really is probably the most important part of this chapter. I'll also just add one more point to it, and it's interesting because the Torah portions are all about these biblical characters, but then all these stories. Now we just read about Jacob meeting Esau, and now we're about to read in this week's portion about Joseph. And I think Joseph's secret, if I may add, to connect it to this week's portion, Joseph's secret, we'll read about his terrible tribulations. And he had, his own brothers try to assassinate him, and then they sold him as a slave to some Egyptian merchants, and then he was accused of rape. We'll read about all these stories now in this week's portion. But the great secret of Joseph and his survival, and not only his survival, but his ability to thrive even in the harshest conditions, to the point that he became the vice king of Egypt, was exactly this, that he saw himself as God's ambassador in the world. He was living not for himself. He was living to carry a message of God everywhere he went. Whether he was a slave or whether he was a prisoner in prison, he was there to make the world a better place. It was never about him. And eventually that's what led him to become what he became, and to become the person he becomes in history too. He becomes for us as an exemplary model. If we can ask ourselves all the time, I'm not just living for myself, I'm living for God. So why am I about to engage in this act? Am I about to engage in this act for myself alone, or to carry God's message to the world for God? And if we can answer this, the second question rather than the first question, then we too will be Josephs, and we too will be able to change the world. But really, that's what it's all about.